What's up guys, welcome to another episode of ThyUltimateGamer Reviews, and today I'm here to record another video for one of my favorite role-playing games growing up as a child. This game was very controversial, and let's get on to the review, and then first of all for the video, I'd like to congratulate Craptastic Jack here for reaching over 100 subscribers. Congratulations dude, you well deserved it, and just keep on doing what you love to do, man. Pretty awesome. And then today I'll be reviewing a game that's been critically acclaimed. It's sold over 100 million copies worldwide. It is the most popular role-playing game series of all time. It's worth your time. If you guys haven't played it, I suggest you go ahead and try it out. Even if you're not a big fan of this series, I completely understand. So without further ado, my fellow subscribers, let's get on to the review. And today I'll be reviewing Final Fantasy XIII for the PlayStation 3. Now, this game has a lot of controversy, saying that the game wasn't staying true to the Final Fantasy series. A lot of people were very disappointed into the battle system. But overall, I'm going to talk to you about my personal review for Final Fantasy XIII. I'll be talking about the story, the features, the characters, and much, much more. So, the story in Final Fantasy XIII takes place in a place called Cocoon, a small utopia in the sky. Its inhabitants believed their world was a paradise. Under the Sanctum's rule, Cocoon had known peace and prosperity. Mankind was blessed by its own protectors, the benevolent l'Cie, and believed that the tranquility days would continue forever. Their tranquility was shattered with the discovery of one hostile l'Cie. The moment that l'Cie from Pols, the feared and detested lower world, awoke from its slumber, peace on Cocoon came to an end. l'Cie cursed humans, turned them into magic-wielding servants. They become l'Cie, chosen of the l'Cie, the fal'Cie. Those branded with the mark of l'Cies carry the burden of their fulfilling their focus or facing a fate harsher than their death itself. A prayer for redemption in which to protect the world, a promise to challenge destiny, and after 13 days of fates intertwined, the battle begins. Now, this is the very first Final Fantasy game in the series to be featured on the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. Also pushes in new cinematic presentation, sound, and gameplay. And the series developer for Square Enix did a great job for its simultaneous release on multiple high-definition consoles. Now, you get to experience the speed and strategy with Ultimate Active Time Battle System. Now, the familiar system has involved granting players the freedom of executing numerous commands in a single turn with a multi-slot ATB gauge, whether inputting singular commands in each slot for consecutive attacks or expending multiple slots at once to activate a devastating blow. It's up to the players to respond efficiently to the battle conditions at hand. Also, adapt to the ever-changing tide of battle with the pentagrams, a brand new game mechanic enabling players to assign roles to the party members at a time during battle, shifting between combat pentagrams consisting of various combinations of the game's 6 roles, ranging from commando, the offensive specialist, to medic, the quintessential healer. Pentagrams allow players to respond and adapt instantly to any given situation to their tide and seize victory. Introducing XIII Mode, a powerful dimension of all the summon system that elevates the action to a whole new level. In XIII Mode, characters and their transformed Indians fight as one, dealing massive damage to enemies through simple button commands. And Final Fantasy XIII features an immersive storyline, connects players to a intriguing cast of characters. Will they have the strength to confront their cursed fates, or will destiny prevail over all that they believe in? Now, Final Fantasy characters takes place of several characters in the game. You play as Lightning, a young, solitary young woman who speaks very little of herself. Even though her true name is Mystery, she is known as others simply as Lightning. Vanille is an endearing young woman with a relentlessly sunny disposition. Her bright personality gives no hint of the dark resolve that lies within. Snow is an irresponsible, fiery young man. Snow dives headfirst into danger, using nothing but his powerful psychic as a weapon. Sasha is a friendly, cheerful man who is never without his curious companions, a chocobo chick, and a pair of pistols. He is quick to banter, but also keeps perspective on matters. Hope has enjoyed a markedly uneventful youth of humankind's haven of Cocoon. His life has turned upside down at the hands of the Sanctum's purge. Sarah is Lightning's younger sister and Snow's fiancée. Always showing concern for Lightning, she has an inner fortitude that allows her to make her own decisions without relying on her older sister. Now, so much has already been written about this game that reviewing it at this point unnecessary. However, as an exercise insight, especially with Final Fantasy XIII-2 that already came out last year, I hope you will refer to this review if you want the opinion of someone who has played it through it twice or read just about every piece of criticism there is about this game. Whether you just want a new experience or are curious about the game because it's cheap. Now let's get on to the review. Let's get out of the way first. The first 25 hours of this game are linear and story-driven. You'll be walking through a lot of hallways and corridors, and the story, told through the perspectives of each party member and via flashbacks, is one that will either hook you or lose you completely. This linearity is often cited as the biggest failing of the game, and it is if you want an immediately open-world experience. Developers took a huge risk in front-loading the game with exposition, and either you'll love it or you hate it. How this linearity affects the gameplay and battle system is that you'll feel on rails for the first portion of the game, as each party is pretty much determined, as well as you level the party. The battle system is pretty complicated, so the game rolls each element out to you piece by piece. Let's get two things straight out of the first 25 hours. Just clicking into auto battle will not work past chapter 3. And anyone who tells you otherwise didn't play the game enough to make an accurate critic of it, and it gets pretty hard towards chapter 4 on through chapter 10. The Sasha Vanilla chapters, where you control two specialists in a party with real no power, can be extremely tough, and some of the bosses are just about impossible if you can't figure out what to do. There's a minimal grinding in the first hours, but you will have to basically fight every enemy put in front of you. There is a little money as well, and you don't really have to do any inventory management beyond equipping the best you currently have, mostly hit points and enhancers. In fact, it is advised that you hold on to absolutely everything you got and sell nothing except the items that have no use besides being traded or for gil. So basically, everything you learn about the first game part of the game is true. But whether or not that's a really bad thing depends on how much you hate linearity and the feeling that you're being guided by the game, as well as how much you get into the story. Again, this was a gamble by the developers, and the negative reaction to this and the subsequent changes in the sequel show that they've learned the modern games, for the most part, don't enjoy feel like they're having their hands held high. When I will say that, since the plot is basically about fugitives on the run and they're trying to escape from a world called Cocoon, this highlights the linearity even more than other games like Gears of War and Dead Space that are just linear but somehow aren't as in-your-face look about it as Final Fantasy XIII. So after you get into chapter 11, to what might be your surprise, the entire game opens up in this beautiful, epic, vast, and daunting way. You choose your party, get them to level as you fit, and set about leveling up in this absolutely gorgeous, lush, verdant environment. This is where you truly learn all the ins and outs of the battle system and how the game works. Again, I know it sounds ludicrous that a game takes 25 hours before you finally get to play it, but if you're a huge RPG fan, you will love how the game opens up and at this point and joylessly spend hours upon hours feeling your love for the characters and to the battle system. So that's the experience of the playing the game. One last note is, if you want to get to chapter 11 but just don't give a crap about the story, you can always skip every cutscene and during, so your grand pulse gives you about 18 hours. Now, the whole game looks absolutely fantastic, arguably the best looking console game of this entire generation, but it's when you first get into Grand Pulse that you really understand just how beautiful Final Fantasy XIII can really be. Take the pre-rendered cutscenes from the last generation, say Final Fantasy XII, enhance them into high definition resolution, and you have what this game looks like in-game. Musically, the game is also just about perfect, with only some unfortunate bossa nova jazzy stuff to lower the score. One other thing, this game has possibly the greatest RPG battle theme of all time. After countless hours, I still love hearing it every single time. To complete the presentation critic, the voice acting is almost informally superb. Yes, even Vanille, whose unfortunate stigma is more a case of cultural differences than lack of quality in the acting. Some things just don't translate well from Japanese to English, and chirpy, happy-go-lucky girls is one of them. It simply must be said that Ali Hill's performance as Lightning is one of the most iconic in this generation of gaming, next to Lara Croft. Right up there with Nolan North as Nathan Drake in the Uncharted series and Jennifer Hale as Femshep in the Mass Effect series. She makes Lightning one of the most iconic, unforgettable Final Fantasy characters of all time, bar none. I feel it's especially important to devote more than time discussing the battle system. The ATB Paragon shift system is a menu-based, turn-based, take-on-roll action elements. This game's about speed, something you granted on after each fight, and about understanding each role and choosing the right paragrams. The combat is very fast and very strategic, as you will never be able to simply overpower enemies after the first few chapters. Everything is about staggering enemies, which opens them up for more damage, and this is accomplished by attacking with melee strikes, chaining with magic, debuffing, and even luring them with your tank's damage sponges called Centennials. Each party member has 3 roles initially, and each role eventually opens up for all members, though some roles are just better than the others in terms of what skills they learn and how effective they can be. Also note that the game is over when the party leader dies, which can be very frustrating at certain times if you're not used to that. Combat system can get really hectic, hard, and frustrating for anyone expecting a regular turn-based system where 80% of the combat is attacking and healing. You cannot succeed in a Final Fantasy XIII game without doing some serious homework on what each role does. Experimenting with pentagrams, learning each enemy's weaknesses, and utilizing all roles, damage by itself is never going to win. As far as speed and strategy goes, this system is probably the ultimate evolution of a turn-based system before Final Fantasy Versus 13 comes, and probably takes the core series irrevocably down the path of real-time action systems forever. As mentioned, there are real-time action game principles that you have to respond to on screen, such as being able to interrupt an attacking enemy mid-animation if the timing is right, or being interrupted yourself and having to be able to readjust. The battle system is essentially a traditional turn-based system on overdrive, and you can think of it as a one turn in this game equates to several traditional turns. If you take the time to learn the system and love role-playing games, you will love the system, because once you master it, it just feels great to earn 5-star ratings and beat enemies in a fraction of the time it used to taking you. It's also unbelievably cool to look at, which is given since the developers specifically wanted to recreate the battle system aesthetic from Final Fantasy XII Advent Children, now on DVD. It must be said that by and all measure, the game does a poor job of explaining in detail what all the roles do and what you need to win. The basic instructions you're given are simply nowhere near enough to succeed, and it's up to you to experiment and see what everything does. A great example of this is that nowhere in the game's vast dialogue glossary of terms did I find definitions of what each debuff does. So if you forgot about shield, faith, lock, etc., you're going to have to figure it out all by yourself. Thankfully, you are not punished at all for dying, as you respawn the same exact location after each defeat with no consequences, ready to reshuffle your party and paragram deck and go from defeating the same enemy into 2 minutes. There is one huge downside to all this in Final Fantasy XIII, and if this is an issue for you to rest, I'm sure in doing a favor by urging you not to buy this game. You never have time to directly choose any specific action. Your job is essentially to manage health bars, stagger bars, buff-debuff statuses, and enemy actions, and shift paragrams when necessary. You have to set up moves in advance exceptionally, knowing the next 3 paragrams you will have to use before you even get there. You really don't have the time to choose anything, but they auto-function each turn no matter what role you're in as a party leader. What this means is that as the player, you are more or less tasked with developing strategies and planning the attack than any actual sense of control. Even in non-action games, there is still a connection when you choose attack from a menu and watch the character perform the action right in front of you. That direct connection between player and the character is just not there as in Final Fantasy XIII. And if that sounds like an issue for you, trust me, when I say this, you will absolutely hate this game. In conclusion, the big talk these games for gamers is that the Japanese games, and specifically Japanese role-playing games, are dead. Square Enix took a huge gamble in Final Fantasy XIII to stave out extinction, and it's pretty obvious that the reaction has been mixed. This game is, if anything, chock full of perhaps too many ideas, changes, evolutions, and aspirations. They've tried to revolutionize and save a genre that is completely dying, and how successful they were depends on your personal taste as a gamer. I hope I've given you the relevant information about this review. So there you have it, you guys, is my review for Final Fantasy 13. I hope you really guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please smack that like button, comment, and subscribe. Overall, I would give Final Fantasy 13 a good solid 8 out of 10. It is not my favorite Final Fantasy game in the series, but however, it is on my top next to Final Fantasy 6 and 7. But this game is quite good. If you're big onto Final Fantasy and Japanese role-playing games in general, with decent voice acting, beautiful visuals, and amazing character lines, you will definitely appreciate Final Fantasy 13. I give this an 8 out of 10. Highly recommend it for any Final Fantasy fans. Fans will be disappointed at times because a lot of hardcore Final Fantasy fans didn't stay true to this game. They were turned down by this game because there was a lot of cutscenes and the battle system was repetitive. It was very confusing and not a lot of people was quite understand how this game actually really works. But I enjoyed this game. It took me about 2 days to beat two and a half days by this game. Square Enix did a phenomenal job with this game. Lightning is a beautiful character, so is Snow and Hope and Sasha and Vanille and Sarah. I'm anxious to get Final Fantasy 13 2 when that comes out. Might get the collector's edition. There's also a new one that just came out